Thanks so much. Appreciate it. When I hear Ignatius Harding, and when I look around and see some of the folks who are here, especially the Holy Spirit Fathers from the parish where I have the privilege of working now in Arlington, Virginia, Our Lady Queen of Peace, who are also a missionary congregation, I think about John the Baptist at the Jordan River when Jesus came to be baptized, and John said, well, it's you who should baptize me rather than I baptizing you. And Jesus said, well, let it go for the moment. I think any one of them should be giving this talk, really, but we'll let it go for the moment, because I did prepare a little bit, and they probably haven't prepared anything. So bear with me if you would. But there's some people here tonight who you really should get to know a little bit, because they represent both great clergy and great laity who have been wonderful missionaries over these many years. And be of good cheer. I'm under strict orders from the executive director, the staff, and probably the missioners in training that you have just seen praying here, to be short, be quick about it, so we can get on with the program for the evening. So I am limited in what I'll be able to share with you tonight. Anyway, it is good to be here on this, I think it's the 5th annual Franciscan Mission Service Care for the World event. It's just such a privilege for me to know that this work continues, thanks to you. Thanks to all of you who have been our benefactors and friends and supporters and prayer partners. It's just a wonderful a moment to be able to say thank you to each of you. You may have noticed in the invitations and in the program that the topic that we chose for this little reflection of mine is Franciscan Mission Service and a new way of being church. A new way of being church. Now that title, the second part of that title, was selected not arbitrarily, very consciously. A new way of being church is a phrase that the bishops of Asia in the last many years have used to describe what it means to be a Catholic in that vast continent of Asia. A new way of being church. And it was something that I encountered this past summer when I had the wonderful privilege of going not only to Asia but also to Africa and to Latin America in a 3-month period, sent by the missionary sisters of the Immaculate Conception of the Mother of God. Sisters, 2 of whom are here tonight, and I want to just mention them. Sister Barbara Freed and Sister Jean Amor are here. Where are you? Right here. Stand up. I want to. You're wonderful. They're wonderful missionary sisters. They asked me to go to their different provinces, their different divisions in Brazil, in the Philippines, in Taiwan, and in Namibia, Southern Africa, over a period of the last 3 months, to offer mission courses in mission theology to their sisters in those parts of the world. It was a unique opportunity for me to encounter some of the young churches of the world in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. And when I was reading up on some of this, especially the bishops from Asia and some of their documents over the past many years, I came across that phrase, which they used to describe their church and their Catholicism, a new way of being church. And that's what I want to talk about tonight in the context of Franciscan Mission Service, because it strikes me that my experience of these past 3 months has put me in contact with really a new way of being church, and it's something I think that will be, I think, very useful, very helpful for us to think about as the church in North America. The new way of being church was one of the most fascinating insights that I gained this past summer as I traveled to those continents. Let me briefly then outline three examples, if you will, of this new way of being church. One from Asia, one from Latin America, and one from Africa, so that I can enflesh a little bit that phrase that is so sort of intriguing for us, a new way of being church. As I mentioned, I went to Brazil, to the Philippines, and to Taiwan, and to Namibia. In Asia, where I first encountered this insight of the bishops, I found that the Catholic Christians, laity, religious, clergy, and Episcopal people, the bishops, have called themselves to three dialogues in their new way of being church. First dialogue would be dialogue with the incredibly ancient and rich cultures of Asia. All of those different cultures that are represented on that vast continent. Dialogue with the cultures was one of the instructions, if you will, that the church received as they reflected on their life in Asia. The second dialogue with the various religions of Asia, and we know about that a little bit, don't we? Hinduism, Buddhism, the Muslim world, and so many other ancient religious traditions. The bishops called the Church of Asia to dialogue with those traditions, religious traditions. And the third dialogue, the one that's probably most familiar to us, was the dialogue with the poor of Asia, the vast numbers of people who live subhuman lives. As I thought about that, and as I began to come into contact with these religious women, sisters of the congregation that I mentioned, missionary sisters of the Immaculate Conception, I could see that they were implementing in their lives, in their daily lives, in their ministries, in their day-to-day work, these three dialogues. Just for example, I was privileged to accompany one of the sisters to a Buddhist monastery. The sister who took me on this little tour was an expert in Buddhism, Catholic sister, missionary sister, and she was explaining to me a lot about Buddhism. We went to this temple, and she said to me, "Now, watch the people here." She said they will buy little sticks of incense, and they will go inside the temple and burn incense to the various Buddhas, the various figures of the Buddha. But she said before they do that, they will take one stick of incense and go outside and burn incense in an act of religion, an act of adoration to the Great Spirit, to the One Spirit, to the unknown God. And sure enough, as we stood there, this young fellow came by. He had bought these sticks of incense, and he stood in the doorway of the temple and placed the incense in a little sandbox and burned it and looked up to the sky in prayer to the God who is our God, the God of all human beings. And I thought to myself, that's an example of the dialogue that is not only possible, but I think necessary with regards to other religious traditions. Something is happening in this world that is bringing us together, and we can find common ground if we are serious about our dialogue. A new way of being church, I think.